The smell of slow-cooked beef stew drifted out from the small diner on Main Street like a warm hug on a cold Montana evening. Snow flurries floated gently from the sky as a battered pickup truck rattled down the road and parked near the edge of the town square. Inside the diner, a young woman named Grace Carter stood behind the counter, stirring the pot of stew she had simmering since dawn. She didn't know it yet, but today was the day her life would change forever. Grace was 28, with soft hazel eyes and a heart bigger than her pocketbook. After losing her parents in a car accident 3 years ago, she had inherited the small family diner, Carter's Corner, along with a pile of debts and a crumbling roof. She could have sold the place and walked away, but she stayed. Not for money, not for pride, but because it was the only thing her parents had built with love. And love, Grace believed, had value money couldn't measure. On slow days like today, she often fed the homeless who passed through town, giving away bowls of stew, bread, or coffee with a quiet smile and no judgment. "It doesn't cost much to be kind," she'd say. "And sometimes it feeds more than just the stomach." The door creaked open, and a cold gust of wind followed a tall, rugged man in a worn coat and cowboy hat. He looked like he hadn't shaved in days, and his boots were dusted with snow. Grace glanced up and gave him the same gentle smile she gave everyone. "Cold out there," she said, setting the ladle down. "Take a seat. I've got beef stew on." He hesitated, clearly not expecting such warmth. "How much for a bowl?" His voice was deep but gravelly, like someone not used to talking much. Grace tilted her head. "If you're asking, it's probably free." The man's brows lifted slightly, unsure how to respond. "You don't even know me." "Don't need to. Everyone needs a hot meal sometimes. No strings." He gave her a long, unreadable look before sitting at the corner booth, near the window. Grace brought over a steaming bowl, fresh bread, and a cup of black coffee. "Name's Grace," she said. "Let me know if you need anything else." "Thanks. Grace." He took a sip of the stew, and something shifted in his expression. It was more than just warmth, maybe memory, maybe pain. Whatever it was, he didn't speak for a long time. Grace watched him from behind the counter, then returned to wiping tables. After a while, he spoke. "This stew tastes like home." Grace looked up, surprised. "It's my mama's recipe. She used to say it could cure heartbreak." He smiled faintly. Maybe she was right. "What's your name, stranger?" He paused, then said, "Jack." "Just Jack." They didn't talk much after that, but something passed between them that day. An understanding. When Jack left, he tucked $100 bill under the bowl. Grace ran after him, waving it in the wind. "Hey! I told you it was free." "I know," he said without turning. "But not all debts are paid in money." The next day, Jack came back. And the next. And the one after that. Each time, he sat at the same booth, ordered the same stew, and stayed a little longer. He didn't talk much, but when he did, Grace listened. She told him about her parents, the diner, and how hard it was keeping it open. Jack asked questions but never offered advice. He just listened, really listened, like no one had in years. One evening, as the last customer left and snow blanketed the street, Grace sat down across from him. "You know, Jack. I've been thinking. You're not really a drifter, are you?" He chuckled. "What makes you say that?" "You've got calloused hands, but they're not the hands of someone who begs. You talk like you've seen more than you say. And you tip like a man who owns a bank." Jack smiled. "I do all right." She narrowed her eyes, playful but curious. "Who are you, really?" Jack met her gaze. "Just a man trying to remember what matters." The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was peaceful, like two souls finding comfort in the quiet. And before Grace could say more, Jack stood. "I'll see you tomorrow, Grace nodded. I'll keep the stew warm. But Jack didn't show up the next day. Or the next week. Grace waited by the window each evening, even keeping the stew hot past closing. Something in her ached, not just for a missing customer, but for the space he'd filled in her heart. Weeks passed. Bills piled up. The roof finally gave in during a storm, and with the insurance company dragging its feet, Grace was forced to consider the unthinkable, closing down the diner. She posted a final notice on the door, last day, Saturday. Saturday came, gray and heavy with drizzle. Locals filled the diner one last time, sharing hugs and memories. Grace served the last bowls of stew with tears in her eyes, her heart breaking quietly behind every smile. Just before closing, the bell above the door rang. And Jack walked in. But he wasn't in his old coat. He wore a tailored ranch jacket, boots that shone like polished leather, and behind him stood a black SUV. Grace blinked. Jack. He walked up, removing his hat. Sorry I disappeared. Where've you been? He looked around at the nearly empty diner, the peeling walls, the stacked boxes by the counter. I was handling business, he said. And thinking. Grace folded her arms, suddenly unsure. You could have called. I could have. But I wanted to come back with something better than an apology. He reached into his coat and handed her an envelope. Inside was a check. For $250,000. Grace's eyes widened. What is this? It's not charity. Call it, an investment. In you. In this place. In everything you've built with kindness. I don't understand. Jack stepped closer. My full name is Jackson Wilder. I own Wilder Ridge Ranch, about an hour from here. Maybe you've heard of it. Grace gasped. Wilder Ridge was one of the largest cattle ranches in the state, exporting meat across the country. I came into town to clear my head after some bad deals and worse company. I didn't want to be seen as the man with money. I just wanted to feel something real again. Grace was speechless. You fed me when you didn't have enough for yourself, he continued. You gave without asking, listened without judging. You reminded me that not all good things are gone. That people like you still exist. Tears stung her eyes. I didn't do it for money. I know, Jack whispered. That's why I fell for you. He took her hand, rough against soft, and for a moment, the world outside faded. But, why now, she asked. Why help me? Because this place matters. You matter. And I want to be a part of whatever future you're building, if you'll let me. The room fell into a hush as the last customers watched quietly, smiling. Grace looked down at their hands, then up into his eyes. Sincere, steady, and deeply kind. I can't promise I know what the future holds, she said. But I know stew tastes better when shared. Jack grinned. Then let's build a life of it. Together. Months later, Carter's Corner reopened with a new roof, new signs, and the same heart it always had. Jack and Grace co-ran the diner and the ranch, merging simple hospitality with honest labor. Locals came not just for the food, but for the story, the woman who fed a stranger, and found love and a new life in return. And every Thursday, without fail, the special on the menu was Mama Carter's beef stew. Served with a side of grace. Moral of the story. Kindness has a way of returning when you least expect it. One small act, a bowl of stew, a smile, a moment of compassion, can touch a heart, spark love, and change a life. In a world that often moves too fast to care, the simplest gestures remain the most powerful. Because sometimes, when you give without expecting anything in return, you receive more than you ever imagined.